Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. It's Conservative Cat. Saturdays from 5 to 6. I've gone down an hour. I'm trying to focus on me a little bit on the weekends, and I went down an hour, and you guys will not want to miss Sports Talk Chicago with John Z. John Z, he talks all things Bears, Chicago sports. It's a really cool program. I'm not much of a sports gal myself. David Paul Blumenshine is joining me in studio right now. You can see this live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. We'll have it live for you there on social media. Now, David Paul, do you watch a little bit of football?
Yeah, occasionally. In fact, it doesn't take me very long to turn off the Bears game these days. I did watch, I'm in a pick 'em with my family members. And so each week we pick the games. And it's fascinating because even the experts can't basically break 500 on these picks because you never know. On any given week, a team can win. So I guess I'm just into the highlights, Kat. Just show me the scores because really, I'm not going to waste my time. Life's too precious, Kat. And maybe that's what has transpired. I mean, I know a lot of people just live and die for sports. I just can't do it. There's too much to do.
Yeah.
Too much to read, too much to live.
Yeah. And John Z, he makes it really easy for our radio listeners to get the highlights and to get the commentary. And
thank you, John Z. That's all I want. Just give me
give me John Z.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Just the facts. Yeah. And, I wanted to also ask you this before we get into the purpose of government, because that's what the show is all about today. Well versed. We are in a Bible study, David Paul and I, that talk about how we're not political, we're biblical.
Yes.
And that's what we have to get back to in government. And I want to play some clips from Mr. Garlow here, who writes that book, Well Versed. And before we get into all of that, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, I think that this was orchestrated. Celebrity romances have been around for so long and they never go out of style. And I'm curious, why do you think that is, David Paul? Why are celebrity romances such a big thing? Because that's all people were talking about for like 2 straight days. And I just don't get it. I've never gotten that. Even when I was a little girl, right? The teenage romances and things that were on like
Zac
Disney.
Efron.
I didn't get it. It didn't really resonate with me, but it resonates with a lot of people. Celebrity romances. So I'm just kind of curious.
Well,
your thoughts. Why does that exist?
Kat, here's my opinion of why people get captivated by other people's lives. Is because at the end of the day, when you start having, or when you start to have to seek inside of yourself and to reconcile who you are, why you're here, what is your purpose? Those are very difficult discussions to have with yourself. And it's so much easier to get captivated or caught up in someone else's life. And, it's simple, right? Because everybody's talking about it, Taylor Swift, Kelce. I really think that probably is the crux of it. Because
the media loves it.
It's displacing, right? It's so much easier we do that in government, right? It's never about the symptom, the border crisis. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about impeachment. We don't want to talk about the fact that financially we're in a position. No, we try to put on all the dressing outside of it to avoid having the real, true conversations about what is best for restoring humanity.
Well,
is Taylor Swift and Kelce, is his first name? I don't even know what it is.
Travis Kelce.
Because he has a brother, right?
Yeah, I don't know. He's a tight end.
He has a brother. One's a tight end, one's a guard for Philadelphia. And the mom, during the Super Bowl, wore half of the Philadelphia jersey, half the Kansas City jersey, because she has 2 sons competing in a Super Bowl game. I guess the one brother in Philadelphia sounds like he's a conservative family guy. Where this other one sounds like he's more of a...
Well, and it's odd that Travis Kelce is doing advertisements for Pfizer, for Bud Light.
He's a wokey.
And here's the thing. I wouldn't doubt that Taylor Swift comes out with some sort of big endorsement of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Or one of the DNC, whoever the DNC picks. I wouldn't doubt that, her and Gavin Newsom, there's a big endorsement of, And that's what they do. They try to get these celebrities,
It's
they
theater.
orchestrate.
It's entertainment.
It's distraction. It's bread and
Yep.
circuses. That's what I think it really is. And I wouldn't be shocked to find out that Joe Biden orchestrated this relationship between Travis Kelce. At least the Biden team orchestrated a celebrity relationship, and had the media perpetrate that. Now, let's get back to the purpose. And I think that there's a lot of things to unpack there. A lot of people don't want to talk about their purpose, their identity, the reason why they're here. James Garlow talks about the purpose of government, and then after that, I want to get into sexual orientation, gender identity. Where does your identity come from? Why do people struggle with gender identity and orientation? Now, we're both in a James Garlow Bible study together,
Yes.
and it's called Well Versed.
Yes.
I wanted to play this because you're actually looking into getting into local government, David Paul, via the county board.
Well, and the reason for that, Kat, is I've run 2 races for state rep. I did throw my hat in for council, but even throwing my name in for the city council of Normal was purely because of a favor, right? Political favor, because it happens. I was returning a favor. Mark Tiratilli and Stan Nord both were helpful in my campaign for state rep,
Mhm.
and trying to move the needle and get away from business as usual. So I went ahead and ran for city council right after I came off a state rep race, and yet trending, it shows that people, it's not, it's as Bongino says, it's not bad enough yet. They don't want our style of politics. Even with this county board race, I
Mm.
mean, it's a debacle where we find ourselves. No forward looking thinking when it comes to walking this thing out through election cycle after election cycle, plus the 10-year plan. We should maintain, um, the seats. The Republican Party should have McLean County. Unfortunately, right now, there's a Democrat advantage.
Mm.
So that's the only reason that I was willing to put myself into the fray. Do I believe that they're going to seat me as the replacement for John McIntyre? Probably not.
Mm.
Once again, they truly don't want what's best for the people of McLean County.
And what is best? I don't know, David. I think that you have a shot to get appointed. They better, because you understand the purpose of government. So let's take a listen to James Garlow and what
Yes.
he says the purpose of government is. You
Yes.
understand this, and I
Yes.
know they understand because we take the
Well,
Bible study together.
that's why they don't understand what we're going to play here.
Yeah, here we go.
Our rights don't come from the government. I don't go to the government and say, "Can I have the right to do this?" Not at all. Our rights come from God.
That's right.
Our founders of our nation, they were so blasted smart. They understood that we have certain inalienable, that means rights that cannot be taken away, inalienable rights. And they were given to us by our Creator. I don't know why some people like to leave that phrase out. President Barack Obama, twice in 2009 and once in 2010, he actually left out that phrase. And again, more recently, left out the phrase by their Creator. That, by the way, is what makes America so exceptional. We're the only nation out of almost 200 nations on the earth that makes the claim, the truthful claim, that our rights come from God. Those rights come from God. They're given to the people. We put them on temporary loan to those we elect or put in office. Those rights come from God. They're never rights that belong inherently to the government. Now, let me go back to my first premise. What's the purpose of government then? It's not to give rights because they have no rights. God has all rights. He gives them to the people. The people then, informing we the people, then we select and temporarily on loan give the authority we have temporarily to persons who are supposed to represent us appropriately. But the purpose of government is to restrain evil. The scripture is very clear on that.
Restrain evil.
In
See?
temporary, we
Mhm.
give them a position temporarily, unless you're Dianne Feinstein. Then we give that to you for well over half your life, like Joe Biden. These people are in office way too long. So
And
therefore,
I hate to say it, John McIntyre.
John McIntyre,
This is why we are in our
unalienable
position.
rights. They come from our Creator. Why do they leave it out? Because they don't follow the Constitution. They don't follow constitutional principles, which, unfortunately for them, not for me, deal with biblical principles and biblical facts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the entire Constitution was woven by our founders with biblical perspective in sight. No, it's also was built, or I should say written and woven, to avoid a theocracy. We're not a theocracy.
Theocracy.
I was saying that wrong. Theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's what they were protecting against. They didn't want one religion controlling the government.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we have faith. Anybody is free speech gives us the right to practice our faith. If that's Muslim, great. Or Islam, I should say. If that's Islam, great. If that's Judaism, great. If that's something else, even, the First Amendment protects you to practice if you want to be a Satanist. I don't recommend it, but you know what? If that's what you want, I don't believe it's good for you, but you have that right under our Constitution. They want to avoid that. So back to your point about the county board seat. No, I don't believe that they truly want someone who believes what we believe through
Mm-hmm.
well-versed.
Yeah. Well,
We're
and
going away from that, Kat.
you're
That's the sad
talking
part.
about our religious liberty and our freedom,
Yeah.
and this is another clip I want to play for you, where it talks about religious freedom and liberty in the First Amendment, and it talks about the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, here, he's probably gonna say it better than I do.
okay, so here we go.
In fact, the number one book that our founding fathers quoted was the Bible.
Yes.
In
Boom.
fact, the number two thing they quoted was other people quoting the Bible.
Yes.
So, what was the view of our founding fathers? A fierce commitment to Judeo-Christian principles. That might be why all of their sayings that are etched in marble in Washington, D.C., affirm so many biblical phrases. But along comes a group of people who don't like the First Amendment. How important is the First Amendment? Well, it was the first of all things. Freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, not freedom of worship, just to worship how I want in the four walls of my church, but the freedom to live out my religious faith anywhere in the public square included. Now, let's stop there for a minute, rewind on that one if we can. There's a difference between freedom of worship and freedom of religion.
Freedom of worship and freedom of religion. It doesn't mean that you're free or that you're, can't do religion in government.
Yeah.
In fact, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You should be doing religion in government because that's what our founding fathers did.
Yeah.
They said it's all based off of Judeo-Christian values. The Bible is quoted in the document, the founding documents, the Constitution. It's etched in marble in Washington, D.C.
Well, freedom of religion. One of the rights, one of the precepts of the First Amendment promising those 5 ideals. Freedom of religion doesn't mean freedom from religion. You can't claim that you don't want me to be able to practice my faith and to worship my God.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Constitution protects us from, right? Is people trying to deny us religious liberties and religious freedoms. It's freedom of religion, meaning I have the right to practice anywhere, not just at church. I can practice it in my workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I can practice it anywhere. You can't restrict me from practicing my faith. When are they going to start restricting that? Right? I mean, we already know they shut down churches during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
When are they going to really, and they were experimenting, Kat. It was an experiment to see how many churches would close.
Oh, yeah.
And they did. They folded.
Mm-hmm.
One church after another. They just closed their doors. Scary stuff. Because once again, we are protected by the Constitution.
Yeah. And he gets into separation of church and state. And I do want to continue our conversation here about religious freedom and liberty, especially in the public square and or in government. On the other side of this break, you're listening to Cities 92.9 Conservative Cat. Welcome back, David Paul Blumenshine.
There she is, Kat Peterson, conservative Kat.
David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio to talk a little bit about James Garlow and the well-versed Bible study. Now, one thing that we were talking about before we took the break was, hey, we have religious liberty to practice our faith, not just within the confines of a church, but in the town square, in government, and in our roles in government. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about, David Paul, and the young Americans or young Democrats of McLean County, I got
Yes.
into a little bit of a feud with them
A
on
little back and forth with them, Kat.
Facebook.
Obviously,
because
I don't advise it. Just ridicule and mock those people because they're I agree with Bongino. I want to treat people with grace and truth. But how do you argue with these folks? I mean, in
they
one
make
breath,
such
they
absurd
one breath
claims.
they say science is real, believe the science. I believe in science, but yet then the next breath, they start spouting things that are so unscientific.
Mhm.
You know,
They make really absurd claims, and I think it with grace and truth, but also it warrants a little bit of mockery because you can't let absurdity just run amok. The reason why we have a little bit of good-hearted mockery, I think, is so that way we can stop the absurdity in its tracks and
well,
say, "That's
it's what they
crazy."
practice, right? They try to ridicule us.
Yeah.
That's why they call us all the names in the book, whether it's xenophobic, transphobic, homophobic, racist, white supremacist, you know, uh, the list goes on. And that's because they're trying to ridicule us. They're
Mhm.
trying to make us less than human.
Mhm. Well, and here's what the post is. It's like this GIF. It's a picture of Ron Swanson from, I think, Parks and Recreation, which is one of my favorite TV shows. And it's really funny because Ron Swanson, in this specific photo that they posted, is actually on the computer, and he finds out that the IRS or somebody is trying to take more taxes from him. So Democrats, they love the tax. They're obsessed with that.
Well,
Right.
they love the money because they got to take the money from you
Mhm.
in order to buy and pay for all of the things that they want to make themselves look good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, so I find it kind of funny that they posted this, Ron Swanson throwing his computer out because he found out that the government was surveilling him and, like, trying to figure out how to get more taxes from him, so he takes the computer and he throws it and he chucks it into the garbage can. So I find it ironic that they posted that because do they even understand the context in which this scene, like, happens? But then they say, "Us when we find out McLean County GOP nominating David Paul Blumenshine to the McLean County Board." And obviously that's a dig, I guess, at you. And I said, look, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of the righteousness, for theirs is in the kingdom of heaven. So then, of course, they shoot back and they're like, well, blessed are the peacemakers. Surely you're not talking about David Paul Blumenshine because there wasn't any peacemaking going on at the insurrection. So, David, I just had to bring this up and talk about it because
No, that
I.
was we definitely were peacefully assembling
Mhm,
at the event on January 6th. In fact, that's what it was. It was a stop the steal, meaning we wanted to exercise our First Amendment right to gather peacefully and
mhm,
protest
mhm,
what was happening in our country. Now, when you talk about the breach of the Capitol, which was very undersecured, meaning there was absolutely no security,
mhm,
and as I shared coming out of the gate with any of the media, especially the government paid for radio on Illinois State University's campus with their reporter, Charlie Schlinker, Charlie, I told him, I said, Charlie, it was political theater. And that's all I had to say because I don't know what led to the events at the Capitol. When those events, for the most part, were going on, the group that I was there with from the radio station, we were at Cracker Barrel.
Yep, and you had a hip replacement. They made it sound these young Democrats made it sound like you were busting in the door of the Capitol building and you were taking the lectern of Nancy Pelosi. right? That you were the one who was doing all of that. Now, I think that the feds were the ones who busted in. Well, I don't think, I know the feds were the ones that busted in that day, and they were the ones. It was a fedsurrection. It wasn't an insurrection. It was a fedsurrection. They no security. The chief of police. There was one supporter who died, and it was a Trump supporter, Ashley Babbitt. She was
Babbitt.
in a window,
Yeah.
and she had her face down. She was crawling through this
A
window.
veteran. Yeah.
A veteran. She was shot
Yeah.
by Capitol Police. So you tell me,
Point blank range. Yeah.
in that scenario,
Yeah.
who the peacemaker is and who isn't.
Yeah. Well, and what's the accountability for shooting somebody? Obviously, that is the people's house. And granted, we've seen many instances throughout our country, whether they be state houses, the Senate chambers, where people have gone in and protested.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what we were protesting that day are those people that were in the Capitol. And once again, I don't condone breaking and entering. But I don't believe that all those people were breaking and entering. I think that most of those people were let in the building because, once again, if you wanted to keep people out of the building, then you would have created a perimeter around the Capitol. You know, the one that they put around the Capitol 2 days following January 6th, on January 8th.
The Illinois Capitol. Or no, the DC Capitol.
Yeah. No, they erected 15-foot fencing around the Capitol to avoid. So just real quick, so I can talk about the young, whatever they're called, the Young Democrat Party in McLean County. The First Amendment reads as such: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. Dems, I know this is a little tough for you. How many people have been charged with insurrection on January 6th? Well, I don't have to wait. The answer is 0, and will continue to be 0, because right now, if the charges haven't been brought, and I get it, there are these ghost charges that suddenly appear, like against President Trump 2.5 years after the fact, for political gain. I mean, that's where things are at. Kat, once again, it's funny that these folks are even out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's, our conversation, the purpose of government is to restrain evil. And I truly do believe that we have county board members on the county board currently who practice evil and who are for evil. And that's very clear. Shana Wachinski pictured with, she says it's Krampus or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But she's got a shirt that says, "Have yourself a merry little pagan Christmas." Yeah. And I don't know why, but Shana, for some odd reason, backtracks and tries to justify the shirt and tries to say that she was pictured with Krampus, not the devil. And, if
because they're not one and the same, or what?
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm the uncultured swine because I don't know, all of the different deities within paganism, right? Yeah. I'm so sorry, Shana Wachinski, but and then you've got Crystal Label. She is in a long-term relationship with somebody who actually says things like "Hail Satan." And it's just incredible to me that we have people in government, Corey Byrne, who has actually been caught on video saying things like the age of consent should be 9 years old, and not answering for his statements about what that means, and refuses to answer, and the media refuses to really ask him the question.
Well, and I mean, even in Crystal Label, obviously she was a candidate to try to get on the board before she ran for office. She was voted down. That's when we had a different makeup of the county board, so they had the votes to not seat her. But I justifiably understand. We don't want socialist. We don't want to become a socialist county. a socialist state, a socialist nation, because that's not constitutional.
Mhm.
And she has self-identified as a democratic socialist of America.
Mhm.
She's self-identified as Antifa.
Mhm.
Not my words, they're her words. It's on. We have clipped your post on Facebook.
Mhm.
You have publicly shared
That you are a member of Antifa.
that
So
you're part of the
me.
social, and you're also you date a Satanist. He, not us saying that, he said it.
He
Sonny
said-
Garcia said he was a Satanist
Right.
at the DeSantis rally that was being conducted to protest Ron DeSantis over in Peoria. Kevin Ferris was there interviewing. Sonny Garcia said, "Hail Satan." That wasn't David Paul Blumenshine. That wasn't Kevin Ferris. That was Sonny Garcia.
Mhm.
I mean, this is, and
Shana
so
Wachinski is the one who said, or who is pictured with
yeah,
something with the devil horns, looks like the devil.
Yeah.
Somebody in a costume,
a
obviously.
mythical, new age, satanic, creature.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and
What do
she
you wanna
has
call it?
something on her shirt that says pagan.
Have
So, like,
yourself
I
a
just
pagan
don't,
little Christmas.
I just
And
don't know how you can continue to lie through your teeth and justify your actions and say that you are the peacemaker. Wait a second, Satan, being a Satanist is anything but peace.
well, but that's
There is no
that's
peace
the
in that
throw off.
religion.
That's what well-versed teaches us. I mean, to have grace and to bring truth.
Mhm.
And however, unfortunately, I have grace for Crystal Abel, for Corey,
Mm.
I have grace for all of these people, but because there's a truth behind it. And I'm hopeful that you buy the truth. You know what? If I get on the county board, great. At the end of the day, someday I die. Physical death,
Mhm.
kind of like Dianne Feinstein, 90
Mm.
years of age, right? And at that point, I'm going to go to either heaven or to hell. There's only two options.
Mm.
Except for some people believe there's the land of make believe,
Land of make believe, heaven or hell, and at the end
or
of the
where
day,
unicorns and Grampus live,
Krampus lives.
or whatever his name
Krampus,
is. That's the
yeah.
Middle Earth. Is that where he
They don't
lives?
believe
Middle
in a
Earth.
heaven or hell. They just believe in make believe. And
Yeah, I mean, there's truth,
Mhm.
and that's all I'm concerned about. Even on the county board, the truth of it is this: we bring in tax dollars and we spend money, and whose money? It's the people's money.
Mhm.
It's not my money, and I need to be fiscally responsible. I want community programs. I want a strong McLean County. And granted, we kind of are an oasis right now, but the doors are closing in, you
Mhm.
know, bombshells are coming because we have representation in McLean County, not on the county-wide basis, thank God. Our sheriff, our state's attorney, our county clerk, our circuit clerk, our treasurer, our recorder, you know, all of these, our coroner, all
Mhm.
these positions are held by Republicans. And now I'm like Bongino. I don't believe the Republicans are the solution to all of our problems, but I can tell you that the Democrats are the cause of them.
Mhm.
And you look at that, what they believe, what they try to do, and that's spend money we don't have,
Yeah.
and it's simple. Your job's not that complex. Take care of the people. How do we do that? By providing programs, not indoctrinating, not creating fear in their hearts, not undermining the economic conditions that exist that make it healthy.
Mhm.
An economy of scale. We're a capitalistic society. We're a free market society.
Yeah.
Capitalism is a different beast, but we're free market,
Mhm.
meaning you run a business, you try to make a profit. Out of that profit, you're paying taxes. Those tax dollars are used, or you're earning a living or running a
To keep
business.
up with things like infrastructure, public safety, and
Curbs
to
and gutters, policing powers, traffic
restrain
lights.
evil.
Yes. It's to create something other than chaos,
Mm.
other than homelessness.
Mm. Mhm. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal, Saturdays from 5 to 6. David Paul Blumenshine joining me in studio. You guys can see the clip on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. And we're everywhere. Be sure to like my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Real simple. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to David Paul Blumenshine, who's joining me here today, the DPB show. Subscribe to him and check out his show tomorrow, Sundays from 1 to 3.
Three. You know, something I noticed about this young Democrats in McLean County, ain't nobody interacting with it except you, Kat. I'm glad that you went on there. I mean, at best, they post frequently. I mean, the 15th, the 14th, they try to post at least once a day. But there's nobody. I mean, one share, one status review. I mean, believe me, it's not a very popular Facebook page. I mean, if anything, Kat, you kind of made their Facebook page popular, which you do that. I mean, anywhere Kat goes, I mean, she is instantly a firebrand. Scott Robbins would call her a lightning rod. Well, at least he refers me as a lightning rod. But I'm actually trying to find the post. Did they take it down?
No, they've got it up there. It's amazing.
What date was it on? I guess I'm sorry. I'm in the camera here.
It's September 21st.
It was September 21st. I flew by it
at 7:08 a.m. So you should feel,
I was in their head in the morning.
You were in their head right when their pillow.
First thing they woke up.
They woke up and they were like, David Paul Blumenshine an insurrectionist.
Yeah, the Insurrection
we're
Radio.
talking about
According to Sharon Chug. That's a real nice thing to say, Sharon. You are an elected official. You are to represent everyone. I would never refer to WGLT or WJBC as Insurrection Radio. They are radio shows that have different opinions. I just mentioned Charlie Schlinker. I actually kind of like Charlie Schlinker.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm not going to call what he does insurrection. He has every right.
It is definitely state run, and that's not
funded.
That's not.
It's fake. You will say
run. It's government media because they get taxpayer dollars. That's government money.
Yeah, they can say listener funded all they want, but that's not the crux of all of their money. Their money comes from other places.
Yeah.
So.
Insurrection Radio.
Radio.
Well, one thing I do want to.
They were very active on the 21st. They had they put up 5 posts that day. Rivian workers. They had clear that we are tired of not having proper representation. What?
Well, Dick Durbin actually. So this is the one thing that I wanted to hit on here. The conservative cat with David Paul Blumenshine. I don't understand. So Dick Durbin, he was talking with the CEO from Rivian, and I guess he said that, hey, I'm just here to remind you that if your employees want to unionize, you need to allow them to do that. Like, no, duh. But like, is he kind of like suggesting that Rivian employees should unionize? And why would he do that? I mean, because right now they're not a union. They're not a part of a union, correct?
Interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I got the one cord. We're going to have to flip it around.
Hold
on. We got technical difficulties. I've got a cat. I think I've got it. How does that look, Cat?
That looks good. Okay. That looks great.
You're looking at a situation where there is no union in this EV plant. Now, interesting enough, you have J.B. Pritzker supporting this. So who do they truly represent? The UAW is going to come in. Is that what they want? The UAW. So the United Auto Workers are going to unionize in the Rivian plant. I have no problem with that. If you can get it accomplished, by all means, get it done. I don't think that the UAW is really going to be fans of the EV plants because they are trying to replace jobs from union workers. In our assembly facilities, combustible engines, those are dying. Why? They're dying because of Bidenomics and Dick Durbin. So I think it lacks because Dick Durbin knows exactly the game he's playing. He's thinking that the unions will still be strong as the Communist Chinese Party is replacing these jobs overseas. It's just a lie. It's the same old.
Well, and with Goshen coming in,
bait and switch.
They're not going to promise those jobs to union workers. They're not going to promise those jobs to Americans. And what he's trying to do is get out ahead of it. And he's trying to say that, the union workers, they have a right to unionize Rivian, blah, blah, blah. But really, Rivian might be outsourcing some of their employment to places like China, and it's all Chinese run and things like that. So he's trying to play catch up, I guess. I don't know, and trying to run interference.
It's funny, the Young Democrats, and I have to jump back this cat because I did find it, and I do want to get back to Dick Durbin. But it's funny because they say that they want to continue in McLean County to understand that we are not far removed from this extremism, and we are not safe in Illinois just because of who the governor is now. Extremism? I've been in McLean County most of my adult life. You know what extremism is? Pedophilia.
Hmm.
Allowing adults to dance sexy in front of children for dollar bills and promote that on our streets.
As a city, Bloomington.
Being willing to stand up in a public forum and say that the age of consent should be 9 years of age. To allow books in public libraries or school libraries that depict same-sex attraction or sex by same-sex partners,
Hmm.
and to celebrate that for our children.
Yeah.
To undermine jobs and the working class family and working class values and traditional values. That's extreme. Talk about extreme. That when we talk about extremism is standing up at a rally and professing that you're Satan. Or a Satanist, I should say.
Yes, and screaming the word "Hail Satan."
Or
That's
pronouncing
extremism.
that the Democratic Socialist of America, something there. Yes, the Democratic Socialists of America are given the right under the First Amendment to have their opinion,
Mhm.
but they can't change the Constitution.
Mm.
And that's what we're looking to do
Yeah,
is change
and
the
here's the
Constitution.
difference between left-wing extremism and right-wing extremism, okay? What they say is right-wing extremism. The idea that public schooling is bad for children and that homeschooling is better,
Yeah.
when statistically speaking, that's true. They
Public
perform
education
better.
is failing. There is no one in their right mind except JB Pritzker, who continues to promote that we have to have more people go to universities and higher education. Bottom line is, who's coming out of high school? If they haven't even passed high school with a competency level, why would we put them in a university? To do what? Are they learning the valuable skills of getting a career and a job,
No, well,
or
and
having a career
I've shared
and
this
getting a
story
job?
multiple times. A black woman, she was an intern of mine, and I had to fire her because she couldn't read, and she
Yeah.
was a sophomore in college at Illinois State University. This happened. This is
Yeah.
a true story,
Mhm.
and that was the moment where I said, "Wow, universities suck, public schools suck,"
Yeah.
and that's the extremist
And they
view I
cater
have.
to it. They cater to it because they feel bad. No, let's go back to the basics of teaching and having teachers deal with the issues that are at hand. We need people to understand how to read, to write, and to factor. You know, one of the things that we did, Kat, during the Labor Day parade, supporting labor, right? Labor
Mhm,
is important. Working families are important. The working families, the Republican Party, the future of the Republican Party is the working families.
mhm,
It's not the elitists. It's not your tech gurus. It's not your billionaire trust fund babies like JB, who seems to lead the charge of the Democrat Party in the state of Illinois. Dick Durbin. We'll get back to Dick, but what truly needs to be taught, as we were passing out pencils from the Republican Party, I was saying, how many of you kids would like a calculator?
mm.
All you have to do is sharpen it. It's the best calculator you'll ever have because it involves the mind
Mhm,
and using your head to think,
yeah,
to process,
mhm.
to calculate.
Yeah, to
It's not a
critically think.
machine.
Yeah.
If you're relying upon a machine to do all your thinking, including these cell phones, or to considering other people's opinions as the way you think, there is instruction. You want to read something, black and white. Scripture tells us that. That's what and I know that's the theme of this show, is the well-versed.
Mhm.
And what he's teaching there is the essence of what we've lost in our country. If we want to restore humanity, Crystal Abel, Corey, the McLean County Board, if we want to restore humanity, then we need to start respecting that the majority of people that live in McLean County, the majority, are people who believe like we believe.
Yeah.
They're faith-going people.
Mhm.
They don't believe what you believe. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't believe it. It's just that you can't force us to believe it.
We're talking with David Paul Blumenshine on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. It's Conservative Cat. You can text me at 309-451-9299. But yes, we're talking with David Paul Blumenshine. And we were talking a little bit about, look, this extremism that they say that we're a part of. Our extremism is not detrimental to children and not detrimental to society.
No, it's actually wholesome.
It's wholesome. That's what I'm trying to say is, look, I believe in homeschooling, maybe getting the kids to do a math problem. I believe in
Kat,
life. I believe in
Kat,
going to work and
Kat,
paying.
you said it best on the posting by the Young Democrats of McLean County. And
Mhm.
thank you for coming to the defense. I don't usually participate.
I don't either, but this particularly bothered me.
Well, I mean, obviously, they only had 9 interactions and 22 comments, with you being a lot of them because now they're scared. But you said it best. Here's the values of my faith. Blessed are the peacemakers. Sometimes that's law enforcement. I'm pretty certain Crystal Abel was not in favor of law enforcement. She wanted to defund police.
Mhm.
For they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you, like calling people insurrectionists.
Yeah.
You know,
White supremacist,
that's right.
racist,
Racist.
xenophobic. Mhm.
These are the values we purport. We want to restore humanity. You want people to be kind to one another? I'm kind to everyone that I meet. I believe every person is a person of worth and dignity. That's how God created them.
Mhm.
Now, when you get into a discussion of what a person identifies as or believes, man, that's not a biblical value. It's pretty simple in the Bible. It says, for God created the man and woman.
Mhm.
Outside of that, there's only 2 genders. I believe there's 2 genders. What people believe and identify at, that's a whole different psychological discussion,
Mhm.
because you will say that that's how they feel. Well, as far as I know, feelings aren't chromosomal. They're not DNA. They're not biology. That's emotions. And that deals with a whole different level and perspective. And we can have those discussions, but at the end of the day, what is it causing? What's the detriment? What kind of mental illness problems are we creating? Teenage suicide. What are we doing to our young people? How
Mhm.
are we really setting them up to be productive members of a community?
Or not. And I want to play this really quick because we've
Okay.
only got a few minutes left, but I want to play James Garlow. He's got this book series. It's called Well Versed. Let's take a
Male
listen.
or
Here we go.
female. Intriguingly enough, that's the first thing that was ever said about you. If your parents had a sonogram and they took a glimpse of you, they said, wow, it's a boy or it's a girl. Or if before sonograms, it's a boy, it's a girl at the point of birth. In other words, you stopped being an it at that point, and you were known as a he or a she from that point on, because you were born either male or female. That's the way the scripture lays it out. In fact, let's just stop there for a moment and take a look at this. In Genesis, we're made as male and female. The next thing that happens is marriage in Genesis. The next thing happens, now we're up to Genesis 4, procreation. And if you take a look at what the enemy has done, what Satan has done, the first thing he did was come after the third one. That's procreation, abortion, kill the babies. Jesus gives life, but Satan comes to kill, steal, kill, and destroy.
Yep. And we've only got a couple of minutes left, but your reaction, David Paul, and we've got to wrap it up.
I think Mark Robinson said it best. He is the gubernatorial candidate, currently lieutenant governor of North Carolina, but now running for governor of North Carolina. You can go out and you can make yourself up. You can dress up. You can drug yourself up. You can cut yourself up. But at the end of the day, that doesn't change your chromosomes.
Mm-hmm.
You were born either male or female. In fact, when they do a sonogram, Kat, and I know we're big proponents to the living alternatives here, when the doctor says it is a
boy,
it is a
girl.
Why? Because medical professionals say what they're looking at. That's how, I mean, I think Pastor Tim says it best. If you're confused about that, look down.
Look down. Yeah, just look down. Yes, exactly. And the what he was talking about there with Satan coming to kill, steal, and destroy.
Yes.
This is very clear. They want to dehumanize people.
Yes.
And
they don't want to restore humanity.
They don't want you to have your identity be
No.
solid, true, and rooted in truth.
That's
because
right.
that would mean, oh boy, I don't get to destroy. I don't get to steal. I don't get to kill.
They want to come to take your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness away from you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to condition you, indoctrinate you into a belief system that has you cloned. They don't want boy and girl. They just want transhumans.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to do it for us on Conservative Cat. Thank you so much, David Paul Blumenshine, for coming in studio.
Cat, tomorrow, Sunday, 1 to 3, the DPB show. Be there. We're going to break it down and how broken the Republican Party is.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks. Be sure to tune in to John Z with Sports Talk Chicago. You can find the Conservative Cat podcast on cities929.com. Conservative Cat is always on Saturdays from 5 to 6. Bye-bye.